I know we have such a wonderful Nixon Pack community filled with pet parents, dog and cat lovers, and as a one-time mom of 5 rescue dogs, and we still have 3 in the Nixon Pack household, I get questions all the time about best practices, tips that I might have. And rather than me answering them, I thought I would bring on the best pet guru expert I know, animal behavioralist and consultant, Barbara Getman. She is the owner of My Pet Has Issues, and she's also my mom. She's pretty fabulous. So, Mom, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. This is
It
fun.
is
I
fun.
love this.
It's great to
Yeah.
see. It's great to see you and your face since we're, how many miles away?
A
Texas
lot.
and New York, too
Yeah.
many.
Yeah.
But I always text you and call you when
Mhm.
I have my own pet issues and have for the past 15 some odd years. But I
Mhm.
also do it for my friends. So I thought, what better way to share your wisdom with everybody than to have you on part of the Pack series?
Right. Yeah, I know. This is what I do. This
I
is my
know.
fun job.
I love that you look at it that way. It
Yeah.
is pretty fun because you get to hang out with
Yeah.
pets all day. But
Yeah.
long before you were a pet consultant, you
Mhm.
always were a part of animals. Animals were a large part of your life in some
Oh,
way since you were born. Give us a quick background
yes.
on you and your love of pets and what you do now.
I grew up on a farm
Mhm.
and was surrounded by animals all the time. And my mother will dispute this, but my very first memory of being around like a dog,
Mhm.
I must have been less than a year old because I remember, and I said this to my mother, I remember having my fingers curled in this dark dog's hair. Like I just remember it being dark
Wow.
and just feeling that dog and the love. And it was just, like cuddled up next to me on a couch. And she says, that's impossible. You can't remember that. And our very first dog was like a Springer Spaniel or something like that. And it had dark curly hair.
That's so
And
cool.
and she's like, you can't possibly remember, but I do.
I believe that you
Um,
do.
yeah, but so it's for me, it's always just been that feeling of love and safety and comfort, and just growing up with dogs and cats and horses and just all around me. To me, that was my joyful place for
Fun
sure.
fact, by the way,
Mhm.
I am named after your horse.
You are. My horse's name was Lee, and when Kaylee was born, I love this horse so much. She was my heart, and she was just everything. And when I had Kaylee, it was like I kept playing around with names, and I wanted Lee in the name. And it was also fitting because your grandmother is Beverly, and then your aunt Kimberly,
Kimberly. Yeah,
your
they did the
cousin Kelly.
LEA was the tradition.
Yes.
That's my party trick, though. By the way, Mom, when I'm at a party and people ask, "Oh, Kaylee's an unusual name." Yeah, I was named after a horse. It was either that or Ronald Reagan Race.
That is another true fact. I was so thankful you were a girl. I got to pick the name.
Yes.
Yeah.
So fast forward to now, Mom, you are the
Yep.
owner of My Pet Has Issues,
Right.
and you don't just work with dogs and cats. You've worked with some other really cool animals, haven't you?
I have, not on an official basis as far as, with my pet behavior business, it's mostly dogs and cats because that's
Mhm.
typically what people have.
Sure.
But I truly do have a love for all animals. And I have a friend of mine who sometimes gets some exotic animals that I can, practice and play with.
What
So,
a cool job you have. So you mentioned the dogs and cats, and I know that's
mhm.
what a lot of our Nixon Pack community has. What would you say is the biggest issue that comes up the most frequently where you have to go out and assist the families with?
I would say pardon me, this would be lady.
How fitting.
Hey, lady girl. I would say with dogs, it's probably anxiety, like separation anxiety. Sorry, not the shot you want.
Fine.
Yeah, life with cats.
Yeah.
Um, so with dogs, I would say it's probably anxiety, like separation anxiety, fearfulness, things like that. With cats, it's it varies. There might be um, issues within the cats that you have in the house, or introducing a new one, or between the cat and the dog, litter box issues, things like that. So,
Okay, you mentioned anxiety. That's one I really would like to talk to you about. Have you
okay.
noticed an uptick in anxiety since COVID, or do you think it's coming post COVID? Because all of us
Hmm.
are home with our animals. You might be able to hear Chance on the couch snoring away. We're home, we're giving them extra love and attention. We're not leaving as frequently as we used to. Is
Yeah.
that something you're already seeing, or is that something that we should prepare for?
It's something you should prepare for. I'm not necessarily seeing a lot of that right now,
Mhm.
simply because people are home,
Right.
right? So the advice that I've been giving to people is try and stick to a schedule if you can. Give your dog some alone time.
Yeah.
Make sure that sometime throughout the day, if they were originally created when you went to work, create them for a couple of hours when you're working at home. They can be there with you, but it's still giving them that idea of, oh, yes, this is where I go when mom's working or when dad's working. Um, and when you leave the house, don't make a big deal about it.
Okay.
Don't be like, I'll be right back. It's okay. Because now you're going to raise that anxiety like, oh my gosh, why is she all excited about leaving me?
That's a
So,
great point. Now, what
yeah.
if we have not been creating them? Like you said,
Hmm.
what if we did when we went to work, but now we've been home for several months. We have not been
Yep.
creating them. But in the new year, this is something that we want to prepare for. So we're going to take your
Right.
advice. We're going to put them in the crate. They don't want to go. What do we do?
Right. So, if you had created them in the past, so they were used to that, I would suggest bringing the crate in whatever room you're working from, right? Leave the door open. You don't have to close it up, but encourage them to go in. Put a nice comfy bed if that's what they're used to. Give them a Kong that's filled with, something really wonderful, right? So we want to reintroduce the crate as being that safe, comfortable place to be
A
where good
happy
things
place for
happen.
them. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a great point. So we are post holidays now.
Hmm.
All the stuff has been put away, but some people under the tree got a new dog or cat. I don't know if you've seen this in your news feed, but I sure
Hmm.
have in mine.
Hmm.
And some of those situations aren't really working out,
Yeah.
where people adopted or, purchased a new puppy and it wasn't the best fit for their family, or not everybody was on board. Where do we
Yeah.
start? What advice do you have?
The first thing I would say is don't beat yourself up over making that choice, right? If you have a pet that truly isn't a good fit, is it something that you can work on to make it a good fit? Or is it really more, you bit off more than you could chew, right? And this goes beyond what you feel that you're capable of doing. A couple of things that you can do. First of all, you can ask for help, right? It's okay to ask for help. So, talk to your veterinarian, see who they typically work with. I know I work with a lot of veterinarians, and when clients come in and they're saying, oh, I'm having this issue and I don't know what to do about this, and we're struggling here, they're focused on the health of the animal,
Hmm.
right? And they don't have a lot of experience with, and there's Cole, they don't have a lot of experience with, hi baby, the behavior side of things, sorry.
That's okay.
So come on baby. So what they'll do is say, we work very closely with this particular organization or group or person, and they can direct you that way. So to me, that would be one of the things that I would encourage people to do. um, Maybe it's, oh my gosh, we just got this puppy and I forgot how much work they are,
Yes.
right? Like, yeah, a lot of work. So, again, you can ask somebody to come in, like a behavior consultant or a trainer, to say, okay, gosh, it's been 20 years since I have had a puppy.
Hmm.
And by the way, that dog was perfect. And
Hmm.
this one is chewing my furniture. So help me. And sometimes having that different set of eyes will give you a different perspective on how you're looking at things, and help you reevaluate what you need to do in order to make your home happy again with this little bundle of joy you brought in.
Speaking of puppies, Matilda and
Yeah.
Stella were rescues from Hurricane Katrina. I know you remember that way back in the day.
And I said,
And,
oh, please don't tell me you're keeping 2 puppies.
oh yeah. And we
Yeah.
did it with the intention to adopt one and foster the other, but we were for
Right.
sure foster failures several times over.
And we knew that was going to happen.
Oh, sure. But I remember we were living in Albany at the time, and we hired a dog trainer because they were just rambunctious puppies. Something I learned from you later on is that it isn't always about them, it's about us. So you can give us advice till the cows come home, but if we're not listening and heeding your advice and also focusing on our energy, you kind of touched on that a little bit. You mentioned getting excited to leave. Bye, I'll see you soon, I love you. Bringing your energy down so that your dog learns from you. What would you say to either new pet parents or pet parents who haven't had a dog in a long time? How can we manage ourselves first?
Okay, that's a great question, because I think we get very excited, right? We bring a new pet in and we want everything to be wonderful, and we want them to have the full run of the house, and we want all of our friends to come in and meet them. And that poor dog or cat is going, help. So understand what your dog's needs are, and focus on that. So for instance, if a dog is pawing at you and barking at you and wanting attention, right? There's a better way to do that. If you want my attention, how about we do this instead, right? I don't want you pawing at me. I don't want you barking at me. It's rude, right? So
you don't think about it that way.
Yeah. But you want to teach them better manners, right? And instead of going, go in the other room or go lay down or stop it or whatever, instead ask them to do something you want them to do. So anytime your dog is doing something you don't want, ask them to do something that you do want, right?
Wow,
so
that's a great nugget.
So just as we teach our children good manners, say please, say thank you, teaching our pets what we are expecting from them as far as manners go is also important, because when they know what's expected of them, life is easy, right? They don't have to worry about, getting reprimanded or scolded for something that they don't know that they're doing wrong.
It's our job to set the boundaries and then keep the boundaries so they get into the habit of them.
Be consistent, right? And be clear on what you're asking of them. So if a young dog is coming up saying he wants to play, right? They're young dogs, they want to play. And you just got home from work and you're like, all I want to do is just sit down and watch the news or, whatever. And they're barking at you. That's where training comes into play, so that you can redirect that behavior and have them do something else, right? So ignore that barking, ignore that pawing at you, right? And instead say, sit, who's a good girl, right? Down, good girl. And pet them and show them that calm behavior is going to get your attention. That barking, you're going to ignore.
I love that tip.
And now what you're going to do over time, if you're consistent, is teach that dog that when they want something from you, to come up and sit and be, patient. And if I sit here and I'm a good girl, mom's going to pet me.
She's going to reward that.
Right. So you're rewarding the behavior you want and ignoring the behavior you don't want.
That's great. I'm going to try that with Gray.
Listen, I tried that with you.
I turned out okay. But speaking of small children and pets, I would love to get your take on this, because again, with a lot of people bringing home animals for the holidays as a big Christmas gift for the family, you have to find the dog or the cat that's going to be a good fit, but also considering the other members of your family, are we all a good fit together? And boy, have we noticed a shift since we had Gray. Something that I told you a while ago is that John and I wanted to wait to have children until after our pack was no longer here. Sadly,
Right.
I didn't want to rush that by any stretch, but 15 years later, here we are.
Yeah.
So,
It's
and
a lot of work though.
yes, we're so thankful, but it is a tremendous amount of work because we have a high energy, almost 5-year-old who wants everything to do with the dogs, and he always wants to love on them and be near them and play with them. And they're elderly. So it's a huge source of stress in our house to try to manage that. Do you have any
Right.
advice for people who are bringing pets into a home with children? Can be any age.
Um, at any age, yeah. I think that again, going back to the boundaries, and if you're bringing a pet into your home, it's really important to know that, they are a feeling being, right? Like they feel pain, they,
Yes.
get hungry, they get cold, they all of those things. And it's not fair to allow a child to mistreat a dog. Many people think, well, if I bring a dog into my house, my child should be able to do whatever they want. Well, that's just not nice. So why?
No.
But
And
some
you
people
think
think,
about all the tails that are pulled, and
oh,
it makes
yeah,
me so
ears
sad.
pulled and
Yes.
hair pulled, and it's just, again, goes back to manners, and it's just not good behavior for the child, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yes, a dog should have tolerance,
Yep.
right? We don't want them. We don't want anybody to get hurt,
Mm-hmm.
child or animal. So it's really important to set up those boundaries, and to teach that child what's acceptable behavior, right? And watch that dog or that cat to see what can they tolerate, right? Maybe a dog does like to be roughhoused with.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they enjoy that, right? Maybe they can act responsibly with that with a child. Maybe they can't.
Right.
Maybe it's too much for them. So it's up to you as a parent to set those boundaries for both the dog and the child.
Off the
You
bat,
know,
and then stick to them.
you have to,
Yeah.
because otherwise, this valued family member of a pet is really going to get the raw end here and not going to be able to enjoy that child, and they should, right? I mean, you grew up with dogs and cats,
Mm-hmm.
and there's nothing like having that bond,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so for me, I love when children can be around pets. More the merrier. But you have to be reasonable about it. And if your child doesn't understand that, then maybe you shouldn't have a pet right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's an age thing, maybe it's a maturity thing. And those are hard choices.
Yeah.
Those are hard choices. But in being a responsible parent in that situation, you have to look at what's best for everybody.
Okay.
So,
I love your advice on that. I also want to talk about something that you and I have been talking about lately offline, but I want to bring our friends into it because I think something that's not talked about as frequently when you rescue an animal is what's going to happen down the road when they're a senior dog, when
don't
you
listen to her.
They're muffs. When you have to really worry about elder care and all of the things that come with that. That's one thing that I was in college when my dog, Heidi, whom I had since I was a tiny, tiny human.
She was 18 when she passed.
Yeah. So I was in college when you had to make that very difficult choice. I didn't see that side of it. And that's something that I wish everybody could see at the end, because I feel like the level of compassion and dedication, love, time, money that you need at the end is also important to go into owning a pet, being a pet parent. I feel like that's an important part that maybe people don't talk about as often. What do you think?
I agree. I think that we forget, right? Conveniently, we get amnesia over what it's like to, first of all, to have a puppy or a kitten in the house, right? But then we also, the pain of that last loss tends to wane a little bit, right? And we forget about that. And then when we start seeing our pets deteriorate, it's scary, right? They can't tell us how they feel. And that's where having that strong relationship with your pet will help, because you can get a sense of, maybe they're a little more stiff when they're walking now. They're not eating as much. They're not drinking as much. They're sleeping more. Um, and those things don't happen overnight. It happens over a long period of time. And sometimes when we're so close to it, we don't see it.
And that's what takes a dedicated family member or friend to maybe bring your awareness to the issue.
Right. Sorry, the cat's rubbing on you.
I love those cats.
It's cool.
But I think that it's important to talk about that too, because it isn't just about the fun, energy, and love that you have with a puppy.
Right.
They need you for life. And there's a lot that comes at the end that they need you even more.
Yeah, I think that's when the patience and the sorry, don't need to push. He's
trying to lighten the mood with the end of days talk.
He's like, I don't like this conversation. I don't like where this is going. But no, I think that being able to talk to your friends or talk to your family and say, help me stay in check here.
Yeah.
Like, what am I not seeing? Right. And again, you and I are both big on having a list, right? And you and I have talked about this as far as looking at any pet's quality of life. Where does it stand? Right. How are they feeling? Are they in pain? Are they in discomfort? Or are they still joyful and participating in life? Or are they taking themselves away and just saying, just leave me alone and let me sleep?
And I'm being selfish for me.
Well, I think we all are, right? Yeah. I mean, nobody wants to say goodbye to their pet. Nobody.
They're your kids.
Well, and you and I have had this conversation so many times, and I more times than I'd like to say, have had to do this all by myself.
I know.
Take them in because it was either an emergency situation or other family members, Chris, just could not emotionally face that. And I think, okay, I get that. Not all of us can, right?
Is that something you've done as a professional in your consulting business where you have helped be that person?
I have. And it's a really hard place to be. I don't like being there, but I have had people come in and say, can you help me? And what am I seeing? And it's not just a conversation with me, it's a conversation with their veterinarian and their family members. And sometimes it's, and listen, I'm just as guilty as anybody, right? Of being in denial. And, somebody might say something. I'm like, oh, no, not all the time. No. They don't. So, and that's where compassion comes in, and you have to say, I know it's not all the time, but how often is it? And that's when I get back to, well, let's make that list, right? On a daily basis, when does this particular thing happen? And it's more of me holding their hand through the process and letting them come to the own decision, right? I certainly cannot make that for anybody. I have a hard time making it for myself. Right. But sometimes it's just on a professional basis of what do I see? Right. And it's no more than that. So
enough of that.
I know. Let's get on to happy subjects.
How about this? Can you teach an old dog new tricks? Because I've got 3 old dogs and they have developed some not so great manners that let's say I like to remedy. Is that possible?
Okay. I don't know. Okay. Can you change yourself?
It's a me problem, huh?
Well, here's the thing. If your dog is doing something, right, that is a habit that you're not really fond of, how did they get in that habit? How did this happen? Did you just go, oh, I'm just too tired to deal with it? And it's not that big of a deal.
And it just escalated over time.
Listen, we all get really good at doing things the more times we do them, right? The more I practice, the better I get, right?
The same with a dog. The other way.
But if they're practicing something the wrong way or the way you don't want,
Right.
they're going to get really good at it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like having an accident when you leave the house. I think it's the anxiety that you spoke of.
Yes.
And that's where I haven't done a great job at addressing that. I just clean it up.
So, then that really gets to the question of, is this happening every time you leave the house? Is this happening immediately when you leave the house? Is it, a half an hour in? Are they pacing? Are they drooling? Are they exhibiting other things? If a dog, like, okay, your dogs are 15,
Yep.
right? So that's a question for a veterinarian. Are they having, incontinence issues, right?
Or is it anxiety?
Or is it anxiety? So you have to rule things out. You can't just say it's this or it's that. You have to say, well, let's go down the list of what's happening, when is it happening, how often is it happening, and then get to the why.
And really, you would do the same for your child. If your kid was having a certain issue that kept coming up, you would pay more attention to it and you'd maybe write down notes before your pediatrician visit. The
Right.
same should be done for our pets, which I didn't really look at it that way until what you were just saying. That's great advice to pay attention, write it down, become familiar with it to the point where when you go, you can say, this is happening on this type of basis. Please help me figure it out.
Yeah. And that's where, some people are really good at, doing that and keeping logs. I do tell some of my clients that are not really sure. Like if I ask a question, they're like, well, I don't know how often that happens. Okay, well, why don't you look at a week, right? Just get a calendar and just write it down. What time of day? Did anything different happen that day? Were you gone longer than usual? Were you not gone? And then you can narrow it down to, okay, well, it makes it a lot easier when you look at it more in specific terms as opposed to big broad ideas. So
you gave us so many great nuggets today. You have so much wisdom, Mom. I'm so grateful that I have you for many reasons, but also because you're just my go-to for all things animals. And I'm so happy that you could share this with us today. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And please, I'm going to put all of your information because you're in the central New York area. So if somebody wanted to get in touch with you locally, but also tell us about the organization you belong to that can help people nationwide.
Okay, it's the International Association of Animal Behavior Consultants. That's IAABC.com. And you can go on there and you can find trainers and behavior consultants in your area. I believe it's by zip code or area code. I'm not 100% sure. But, it's a really good resource for a lot of different reasons, but it does bring it down to, somebody in your area. And another good resource is your own veterinarian.
That's great. I know you work with so many
I
in
do.
Central New York.
Yeah.
We're
And I
lucky
love it.
to have you, and so am I. Thank you so much. Barbara Getman,
welcome.
my pet has issues. You're the best.
All right. You're welcome. Love you, honey.
Love you.